Elon Musk drops a $175 billion bombshell on Republicans and on all the naysayers. But will he reach his $1 trillion goal? That's the question down in the chat below. Welcome to the Quad Club, my people who watch 4 videos a day. You guys really keep things humming along, and it's great to hear from you in the comments. Welcome to Doug in Exile. I have stuff on Elon Musk. I've got reports from the Supreme Court. We've got the big giant back and forth on Trump's tariffs. So Time Magazine, they're not friendly to Trump or Elon Musk, but as Musk leaves Doge, what comes next after the billionaire's government experiment? That's one way of putting it. But 3 months later, as the billionaire entrepreneur is set to step down from his role, we'll go into that too, as the most visible face behind the Department of Government Efficiency, that's what Doge stands for. He leaves behind a complicated legacy that includes thousands of layoffs, the evisceration of government agencies, and frequent clashes with top members of the Trump administration. Musk also leaves Washington well short of his goal of reducing federal spending by $1 trillion, only having cut around $175 billion. That is not entirely honest or true. Now, Musk has said before, when he first started looking at cuts, he goes, I think we could cut 2 trillion. And everyone freaked out going, that's impossible. Later, he more soberly predicted $1 trillion that he could cut from our government waste. And right now, he's at $175 billion in cuts. He was aiming for about $5 billion a day. If you multiply that out to Trump's first 100 days in office, he would be at $500 billion, and he's at $175 billion. So less than half. And everyone wants him to do more, but you can't underestimate that he found resistance from within all these organizations, just the Democrats, by the way. It is not members of Trump and Republicans anywhere. It's Democrats. Number 2, he faced massive court pushback. Remember, the courts were keeping him from being able to fire agents or downsize U.S. aid. So there's no way he could have predicted that. I only know, are you betting against Elon Musk? That's going to be the question down below. Will Elon Musk reach his $1 trillion goal of cuts? I'm going to convince you on that just a little bit right now. That $175 billion is only in the first 100 days. He didn't say he would cut $1 trillion in 100 days, you morons. And that's how they're framing it. They're going like, he said $1 trillion. No, Doge doesn't end until at least halfway through 2026. That means he has 1 year. So multiply it out. $175 billion every 100 days. You'd have at least 2 more chunks of that. That'd be at least another, I would say, $350 billion by the end of the year, making his total, what was that, 500 billion. He's halfway there by the end of the year. So if he gets the other half by next year, $500 billion, you add those 2 up, he's on track to cutting $1 trillion in a year. So I think it's a little too early, because people keep saying like they're going to bet against Elon Musk, the guy that redefined rocket ships, the guy that invented or redefined the electric car, making it the most popular electric car company in the world, the guy that bought X and turned it around and made it something profitable and changed the entire narrative on how we get our news, how flow of information, which opened up free speech to help Trump get elected. He's the leader designer of robots. He's a leader using Grok AI. I would not bet against this guy's $1 trillion. Musk's role, working for President Trump, was always intended to be temporary, and he had recently expressed interest in returning his focus to his businesses because Democrats have destroyed his businesses. But they're going to be fine. Again, they make great product. He always stands behind the product. But remember, the Democrats, this guy is not getting a salary from the government. So he is a citizen who works for free, and he manages to cut $175 billion, and that's somehow a loser. I don't get it, guys. This is some really weird spin. And he always said, we're going to go into why he has to step down. This is not him outrage quitting or anything. This was always the plan 100%. So them trying to make it sound like there's any kind of tension, it's not true. He and Trump are like best friends. But his departure, announced late Wednesday on X, the social platform he owns, marks a striking turning point for the federal government's ambitious cost cutting agency he helped define. And no, it doesn't. That is fake news from Time. Quote, the Doge mission will only strengthen over time, he says, as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. So that's the biggest change. He went into government and put them on their back heels. And suddenly they're not going to think, hey, let's fund trans operas, in New Zealand, and let's make an Iraqi Sesame Street. The government is going to be on their feet going, we have to itemize this stuff for the first time ever. We have to be more transparent. We have to get stuff approved because we don't want to get caught stealing from the government. Musk wrote of his efforts to cut federal spending. He added that his scheduled time, and they put it in quotes as if he's lying, and that's not true. This was always his scheduled time, as a special government employee had come to an end since he is not permitted to work more than 130 days in a 365 period under that designation. So they just now explained everything and undermined their own spin on it. He's a special government employee. That was the terms that he was able to legally come in and work. He's only allowed to work 130 days within a year, and he put in 130 days in his first 130 days. So he has to go. He has to step down. It was always the plan to work those 130 days. Well, I got nothing but thanks for this guy. What an incredible citizen. If only all of our government workers were this committed to make our tax dollars, we paid for this stuff, to make it stretch farther, to help to actually stop waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. How can you demonize this guy? And they blow up his Tesla dealerships. And if you're a random owner of a Tesla, people come in and they start scraping swastikas on your car. Musk, who has spent nearly his entire career working in Silicon Valley, has made no secrets of his frustrations with Washington. He recently told the Washington Post that the federal bureaucracy situation is much worse than he expected. Yeah, you turn over that rock and then you see all the worms and cockroaches underneath it. And it was, quote, an uphill battle trying to improve things in DC, to say the least. An uphill battle. We know how corrupt DC is. And this guy took it on. And frankly, I think he won. Think of the publicity and the branding and the spotlight that he put on government waste, fraud, and abuse. The average American believes that Elon Musk did what was right and found the truth. So just that message alone, future candidates are going to have to answer and say, are you for waste, fraud, and abuse, or are you for cuts? And let them come out and try and protect what the government's doing with our tax dollars. Good luck with that. He had an interview with Ars Technica that, quote, I probably did spend a bit too much time on politics. Wow. That's an interesting admission. And that he intentionally reduced his involvement significantly in the recent weeks. He's going to go back to his government, go back to his companies, and he has to do some repair work and building because they're all innovating faster than the speed of light. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt on yesterday, thanked Musk, quote, for getting Doge off the ground and announced that, quote, the efforts to cut waste, fraud, and abuse will continue after Musk's departure. So they don't need Musk. I hate to say this, but they needed Musk to set the thing up. They don't need him to run it every day. You've got all those Doge employees, the kids, going in and finding waste, fraud, and abuse. You really don't need Musk, who's probably making what, $40 million an hour. You really don't need that guy's salary. The government's not paying him, but I'm saying he's getting paid by his companies and frankly, wasting his time on Doge because he now has an efficient group of Doge people to take it over, and they will continue. Musk's once commanding presence in the Trump administration. By the way, Margie Taylor Greene is the head of the Doge committee. So we have government people working in that area to help it along. His presence in the Trump administration appeared to diminish in recent weeks. He had previously appeared with Trump in the Oval Office and his cabinet meetings, often donning the president's signature MAGA gear. Trump had even bought a Tesla that he showed on cameras at the White House lawn as protests and demonstrations against Musk's company began gaining steam. That's just by Democrats and their hysteria. Tesla's stock slid significantly amid concerns that his unpopularity was damaging the electric vehicle maker's brand. Musk announced he would pivot back to running the companies 24/7 now that he's finished with Doge, claiming I must be super focused on X, that's Twitter, XAI, that's the AI company that helps run Grok, and Tesla. That's for the cars, robots, self-driving taxis that are all the rage, and they're all coming within the next year. You'll start seeing this stuff. He also vowed to substantially cut back his political spending in future elections after he pumped nearly $290 million into the 2024 election, helping Trump and other Republican candidates. I think in terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future, Musk said on May 20th. I think I've done enough. And by the way, thank you for giving us President Trump. You helped in a big way. I don't think you owe us more. And I think you saved free speech. I often wonder if America deserves you. Let's move on to another piece. This is a judicial coup reversal. The Supreme Court stays anti-Trump judge's decision to stop real Donald Trump reversal of Biden parole amnesty for 500,000 aliens. Mass deportations can proceed as planned. Justice Jackson writes a dissent, Ketanji Brown Jackson, which was joined by Justice Sotomayor, but was not joined by Justice Kagan. That's very interesting. The other female liberal Supreme Court judge did not join. A quick paragraph to get you caught up on these other news stories. I'm not going to do a deep dive in this, so hold tight. Supreme Court allows Trump to revoke Biden's parole program. Sotomayor and Jackson issue a scathing dissent. This is from today at the Supreme Court. So you're going to get the latest from us. I hope you guys have subscribed so you don't miss out on this stuff. The Supreme Court on Friday, that's today, granted the Trump administration's emergency request to revoke former President Trump's parole program that extended illegal protections to hundreds of thousands of migrants from 4 Latin American countries. It marks the second time the High Court has sided with the administration's effort to rescind a group of migrants' temporary legal status, part of President Trump's sweeping immigration crackdown that has sparked a burst of lawsuits. Just so you guys know, the highest court in the land is supporting Trump. That includes John Roberts, guys. We got to keep an eye on the squishes and give him credit when they come on his side. Very good news that the highest courts so far are leaning into Trump, allowing him to do his deportations. Now, this one is on the Supreme Court with the tariffs. I have 3 articles and they're in conflict with each other. I'm going to end on the latest one that I think is the most accurate. The Supreme Court may not step in and save Trump's tariffs. That's their claim. The path forward for Trump will not get easier after a defeat at the U.S. Court of International Trade. Now, that was Politico. And this article is in direct conflict with it from the BBC. Trump tariffs can stay in place for now, appeals court rules. This is from 14 hours ago. U.S. President Donald Trump can keep collecting import taxes for now. An appeals court has said a day after a trade ruling found the bulk of his global tariffs to be illegal. So he can keep doing tariffs. And then finally, this one from Reuters. Trump's tariffs to remain in effect after appeals court grants his stay. So again, this is today. This is just updated 25 minutes ago. Here's the bullet points. Trade court ruled Trump exceeded authority under Emergency Powers Act. The appeals court orders plaintiffs to respond by June 5th, administration by June 9th. Uncertainty over tariff impacts trade talks and market reactions. I don't care about the market reactions right now. A federal appeals court temporarily reinstated the most sweeping of President Donald Trump's tariffs on Thursday, a day after a U.S. trade court ruled that Trump had exceeded his authority. That was that first article in imposing the duties and ordered an immediate block to them. The United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington, D.C., said it was pausing the lower court's ruling to consider the government's appeal and ordered the plaintiffs in the cases to respond by June 5th. So it looks like they're letting Trump have his tariffs for now. And I'll keep you guys posted on this because this is moving, as you can see, every day. And there's multiple lawsuits against these tariffs that they have to address. I think there's over 9 right now. Over 9 lawsuits on these tariffs. Anything Trump does, the Democrats are using judicial activism of these lower federal courts that are reaching way beyond what they should do. And the Supreme Court has to shut this stuff down. They're going to have to address this to protect the power of the executive branch of the president. Judges cannot run this country. We're going to go back to that final question. I really need to hear from you. Chat below. Will Elon reach the $1 trillion goal of cuts in Doge? I'm saying by next year. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Doug in Exile. God bless you hard.